be called special given the cards that are in front of us. But I'd like to first welcome our guest, Mr. Matt Epstein, to come forward. As he steps up, he is being appointed by the mayor for vacancy created by Eric Holloman, and this is for the citywide commission. Good afternoon, sir. Well, first I want to thank you for stepping up for the city. I know you have a extensive record in terms of how you've been supportive. So I wanted to ask if you could just give us a little bit about yourself, your background, and your preparation for this role. And then I'll ask maybe one or two more after that. Good afternoon.
Thank you. I'm a lifelong resident of Sherman Oaks. Lifelong resident of Los Angeles.
Is the microphone on?
There you go. Okay.
There you are.
Anyway, a lifelong resident of Los Angeles, and for the most part, the last 20 or so years, my work is in real estate. And the last 5 years, I've worked at the chair of the South Valley Area Planning Commission for the City of Los Angeles. And before that, I worked, did a 4-year tour under Dick Reardon in the South Valley Area Planning Commission as well.
A 4-year tour sounds like a battle or army service or something. When you look at, there's a lot of issues that we contend with, how policy impacts our quality of life. And one has been the posture of housing that's accessible to people who work in Los Angeles. And I just want to get your perspective on how you see your role and how it will impact access to housing, affordable housing in particular. But so I want to get your perspective on that.
The South Valley APC hasn't dealt with a whole lot of issues on affordable housing, but we have had a few projects in front of our commission. And just like we've handled liquor licenses and we've handled cell sites. I've personally looked at each individual project on its individual basis and how it's going to impact the community, how it's the benefits of the project and the merits on the individual project. As far as affordable housing on the citywide planning commission, again, I will look at each project and see the impact on the city as well as the benefits of the city and the community.
When we look at our economy today and we want to attract businesses, I always ask myself, where will the workers live, where will the laborers live, how will we support our business sector when we need to house a workforce. And to me, there's a constant tension between those who have a strong sense of what they don't want to see in their neighborhoods versus what we need to do for our economy and for our neighborhoods as well. So I look forward to working with you on those issues. My last question is as you leave this experience, what would you like to leave behind? What kind of footprint would you like to leave behind? Because you will be influencing our built-out environment. You'll have an influence on how the city evolves from its regarding its space. So I would just like to get your perspective on that.
As a lifelong resident, my father grew up in Boyle Heights, and I grew up as a kid. He worked at the Herald Examiner, and I've spent my entire life here in this city, and I love this city. I have, being in the Valley, I never signed off on the Valley secession as far as being a different city. I look at myself as a Los Angelino, not a Sherman Oaksy person, whatever, Sherman Oakie. I guess the impact that I would like to leave with is to, as I'm leaving the South Valley APC, that the community that we all live in is a better community, that it functions better, it looks better, and it acts better. And I guess that would be it.
Again, I appreciate all your hard work. it almost feels like this one big city is a city of many villages that have their unique history and unique sense of identity, and I treasure the nuances, its architecture, its their personalities, but I also know that we have to survive as one city, so I look forward to working with you in the future, and I would hope that if you have any questions, don't hesitate to call my office and see how we can work together as we go through these different levels of discussion.
Great, thank you.
Councilman, have any questions or any observations?
Yes, where'd your father live in Ball Heights?
Where?
Yes.
I could show you his house, but I couldn't tell you what street it's on.
I may be living in it right now, I don't know. I live in Ball Heights. You were part of the original Area Planning Commission, right? You're probably one of the, you were appointed in 2000 by Mayor Reardon?
Yes, I was.
And you've been now serving on a different one?
No,
The same one?
Same one.
Same one. Yeah, so you've seen it evolve. Any suggestions for improvement as to the overall structure of the planning commissions, what you see, what you don't see, what your input is and what it's not?
That's a great question. When the first group of commissioners were appointed by Dick Reardon, that was exciting because all we had was the city planning commission, and the training that went into the commissioners in the first group of them was very extensive, and now it's just kind of like they're thrown on and they have no experience, and they're making decisions, which is I don't think it's the best way. But that would be the only thing. I mean, again, these for the most part they're smart folks. Yeah. But I think the training has. And I actually met with Gail Goldberg last week, and we actually talked on that point as far as that her office is working on creating a training program. She had some gal down here from San Francisco, I believe it was, to do a training for the city planning commissioners. Yeah. But she wants to initiate a program for all planning commissioners to go through that, to give them a quick study on that.
Yes, I recall that training. I was part of the East Area Planning Commission, and it was pretty extensive, and I found that very, very helpful. Even at that time, I was a land use attorney and found that to be very helpful in terms of knowing the inner workings of, and that was actually a new procedure after the charter. Right. Review, that we had new procedures and the area planning commissions were new, and I thought it was going to continue, but it was just for that one time, but I think that should be very valuable. Thank you for sharing that with Ms. Goldberg. I'll follow up with her as well. I think it'd be helpful to help with others. And finally, how have you survived 3 administrations? That's pretty good.
Well, I actually only had to survive 2 because well, the mayor in between, Jim Hahn, did not appoint me for his stay as mayor, so I only had two privileges.
Great, thank you.
Well, I would know that I recommend you to the commission, and if we have a second on that?
Second.
So that'll be the recommendations committee, and I look forward to working with you and soon before the council. And we have the paperwork that needs to be done as well. All the forms have been submitted? Pending, okay. So we look forward to working with you, sir, and again, thank you for your commitment to the city.
Thank you for your time.
Okay. Councilman, looking at the agenda, we have cards on a few items. We have cards on agenda item number 5, which we'll call special. We have cards on agenda item number 6. We also have cards on 7, cards on 8, and I believe the rest we can take action on. Number 2, we have, Roberto, want to read number 2?
Item 2 is an ordinance transmitted by the city attorney. It has to do with the solid waste alternative facilities, and the committee approved this previously, but requested the city attorney to draft the ordinance.
So that would be our formal request of the city attorney?
No, you simply approve the city attorney ordinance that is before you.
Okay. So that would be a motion. I'd like to move on that. You have a second?
Second.
Okay. On 3 and 4 we can put on consent. With the specials on 5, 6, 7, and 8.
How about 9?
9, we're going to continue in plan September 21st, and council hopefully on October 6th. And we don't have the director today? Okay, thank you, Vince. So that takes us back to, I guess, number 5, Roberto?
That would be item 5, council members. This is a report from the planning department. They're transmitting an action of the planning commission relative to a general plan amendment and a zone change, and it has to do with...
I'm sorry to interrupt, but let me do this, because I want to make sure I'm trying to be pretty consistent, but we do have the LAPD here on item number 7.
That's correct.
So if I can just move on LAPD first, I'd like to get them back, get them out of this room and out in the streets doing their job, so I appreciate that. So number 7, Roberto?
So number 7, council members, it's an appeal by DD Liquor, which is the project applicant, and also an appeal by Joey Porter. They're appealing the action of the zoning administrator, which imposed conditions relative to the operation of a liquor store in CD9, and the zoning administrator is present.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Sue Cheng with the City Planning Department. Thank you so much for taking this case first. Our LAPD officers will be very grateful. This subject matter is for nuisance abatement associated with the operation of D&D liquor store in the subject location. In February 2009, the zoning administrator determined that the operation of a D&D liquor store is a public nuisance, and imposed 20 operating conditions on the site. The subject application is to review the condition compliance as required by the prior action. After taking testimonies from property owner, business operator, residents in the area, representatives of Council District 9, and LAPD officers who are responsible in that area, I found that not all conditions imposed have been met by business operator. However, the operating conditions imposed in 2009 have been very effective. LAPD officers testify that the operating implementation of operating conditions have resulted in a substantial decrease in nuisance activities on and around the subject liquor store. However, in order to mitigate some deficiency in condition compliance, I retained the prior conditions. Some conditions are modified, and I added additional conditions. In this case, the property owner and business operator, they appealing 3 conditions imposed as part of my determination. Condition number 7, that requires a security guard from 12 noon to 30 minutes after closing. Actually, that is not a new condition. This condition was modified just to ensure that security guard patrol outside the liquor store in addition to monitoring inside of the store. This condition is not appealed by a business operator. That's fine with the business owner. However, the property owner feels that that condition should be modified in such a way that this is only applicable for liquor store. So in case there is any change in land use on the subject property, this condition should not be applicable. Condition number 21 requires that the property owner and business operator participate in any local business neighborhood watch program and meet with the LAPD every 6 months or as a needed basis. The property owner contends that she lives far away from this location, and whatever responsibility associated with the operation of the liquor store should remain with business operators. So she feels that...
I'm sorry to interrupt you, but I just need one point of clarification. did you state that it's the property owner who's objecting to the conditions, or it's the
That is correct.
operator?
Two conditions: security guard condition and the meeting requirement with the LAPD and local neighborhood watch.
Right, and then it's, as again, for the sake of clarity, is it the property owner or the operator of the liquor store that is objecting, or is it the same person?
Property owner is not the business operator.
Okay. And does the business operator object as well as the property owner?
No, business operator does not object to condition number 7 and 21. Business operator is only appealing condition number 23 that requires operating hours from 8 to 11.
Okay. Okay. I just wanted to make sure I heard you clearly. Okay.
Okay.
Please go ahead.
The land use decision remains on the property. Actually, the nuisance activity occurs on the property should be responsibility for eventually that goes to the property owner. So this condition should remain as it was written. And also operating hours, the business operator is appealing. Actually, the prior grant did not have any condition that regulates the operating condition. Currently, the liquor store is open from 8 to 2 o'clock in the morning every day. And at the testimony taken at the hearing that I conducted, the LAPD officers recommended operating hours from 8 to 10 or 11. So I restricted it to 11 p.m. You will hear from LAPD officers that they recommend further reduction to 10 p.m. So I'll leave it up to your discretion for operating hours. I'll be available for your question.
Okay. Okay, well, thank you. Let's hear from the appellant, then we'll ask the LAPD to come up, but I believe the appellant is Joy Porter. Good afternoon, ma'am.
Hi,
Can you
I'm
give us your name and address, please, for the record?
My home address?
Yes, name, whatever address do you think?
My name is Joy Porter. I'm at 2349 South Beverly Glen Boulevard, Los Angeles 90064. And this is my sister, Judy Swartz.
Okay, good afternoon.
Hi. The only thing I am appealing as the property owner is that my sister and I, to go to the meetings of the neighborhood and with the police, we do not live in the area. For us to take her off of work to go, we do not get paid, and we work a lot of hours, and it's very hard for us to go to those meetings and feel that it should be the operator of the store who's in the area all the time and should be going to the meetings. And that's really the only thing that I filed for. I didn't file for the security guard.
Okay, okay.
Thank you. And are you aware if there is a local business neighborhood watch? Is there one in the area?
I beg your pardon?
Is there a business neighborhood watch in the area?
I have no idea.
Yeah. Okay. Because there are some communities that have them, others that don't. So you don't know if there's one in the area. Okay. Now, what if, how often are you required to meet with the police, with the LAPD?
I think it was twice a year she required it.
Twice a year. And you find that problematic?
I do. Like, we don't drive on the freeways at night, and we are working full-time, both of us, separate jobs, of course, in different areas.
It's a matter of...
But usually when there's a problem or something, like, they notify us. That's how we started with the problems that were going on, and then we stepped in to make sure everything was brought up to compliance.
Okay.
So we are notified when something happens from the city.
Okay. But you don't feel, you find it problematic to meet with LAPD because it's inconvenient for you?
Well, technically, yes.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
I do, because like with working full-time and then with family and, other personal things get going, it's hard.
Okay, thank you.
You want to say something?
Anything else to add? I just want to make sure the appellants are given all the time. Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Are there any other appellants on record? I just have Joy Porter. And Judy Schwartz, is that? No, it's you, okay. No.
There was an appeal councilman by DD Liquor. I'm not sure if that was the operator.
Now, how about Jasper S. Walia? You are the operator?
Not the operator, but I'm representing operator.
Okay. Now, Roberto, is there an appeal on behalf of the operator as well?
Well, the file shows a D&D Liquor having filed one of the appeals.
Okay.
So-
So that, I'm assuming you are appealing, since you're representing D&D Liquor?
Yes, sir.
Can you give us the nature and the reason for your appeal?
Nature and the reason for the appeal is, first of all, I have helped them buy the store. And
Say that one more time?
I said I helped them buy the store, and it's a great location for the business. And we are appealing only for the hours of operation. The hours of operation, based on conditions, are being cut down till 11 o'clock, and that impacts business adversely a lot. And I have prepared some documents and some points which I would like to bring to the board. And if
You can leave it with the clerk?
so, can I continue?
Please continue.
Okay. I prepared about 6 or 7 major bullet points. After the hearing, we complied to almost all the conditions that were levied, like cleaning up surroundings, retrofitting lights, removed all graffiti, recruited new full-time security guard, neighborhood watch programs, and there were certain items that were strict off the list, and we don't sell them anymore at the store as well. Judy Schwartz and Joy Potter have been great. They gave us a very workable lease because the business was in very, very bad condition when we took over, and we continually made effort to fix it, run it nicely, have a good customer service, and reduce public problem that was there before. Earlier operator, he was not there most of the time, and he had help, which was employees running the store, so there were problems all the time, and that's probably the problem why people are thinking it's a nuisance now. And we've continuously tried to fix it over a period of 3 years. And another reason why I'm appealing for the hours to stay how they are is across the market there's a Numero Uno store, which is very big, as you're all aware. It has multi-million-dollar buying, and we can't compete with them. Our only asset is we have to keep it open a little late so that the opportunity cost is there. Somebody who wants to buy a can of milk can come after 10, 12 o'clock and buy it. And another point is, number 4, which I want to mention, is there are a lot of other stores in the neighborhood which operate till 12 o'clock almost every night, and the 2 as well. And these are the stores which have serious violations. We don't even have any violation, and we've continued to make an effort to improve the store and the neighborhood. We have attended STAR programs, neighborhood watch, everything that's been recommended by the city. We are complying. And also we've hired a lot of people. We hire off and on when busy time, like Christmas time, Thanksgiving time, and stores are busy. So we help support local community, pay payroll taxes, hire people, purchase inventory, and that helps local business. So we just like board to consider that fact that we're just a small people trying to run the shop, and we want cities and PD's help to let us do it in continued fashion the way it is, and so that we can make our money. It's very simple because there are a lot of expenses that and we have to run longer hours for him to compete. That's all. Any questions?
Thank you, sir. I want to make sure we're complete.
Thanks a lot.
Okay, that concludes our presentation. Okay, we do have 3 officers that are here, and I'd like to call them up. We have, I believe, Officer Ernie Matsumoto. We have with us Officer Stacy Young. Come on up. and we have Detective Eric Moore. So, you guys can let me know who you think should speak first. Okay. Good afternoon, and again, thank you for your hard work.
Good afternoon. I'm Lieutenant Ernie Matsumoto. I represent Operation South Bureau. I'm here on behalf of Chief Gannon, who unfortunately was not able to attend due to a funeral. But the message that he did want me to convey to the City Council today was that he wanted to ensure that the business owner and the property owner are going to be held accountable for providing countermeasures to ensure public safety. As of today, there are presently 53 homicides within South Bureau. 39 of those are gang-related. In anybody's community, that's unacceptable. Last year to date, we had 54. So the numbers haven't changed. They're basically the same. With dwindling resources, our department doesn't have the resources to address problematic locations, which D&D at one time was one of those. Presently, they are trending in a direction that we'd like to see. They're establishing certain countermeasures to curtail the criminal activity in that particular area. I myself took the time to visit that liquor store last night, and with 29 years on the job, 13 of those years spent in undercover capacity, I didn't feel safe. There's still panhandlers in that area. There's people there that look at the D&D liquor store as a watering hole, and it has a tendency to attract criminal activity. And I know it's a work in progress, but I can say at this point in time, with the proposed conditions, that's a step in the right direction. As far as the details of the other things that LAPD is doing with D&D liquor, with the owners and with the property owners, I have two other investigators here, Stacy Young as well as Eric Moore, that could provide additional detail.
Please, this committee is tasked with assessing their request, given the nature of their appeal, and we need to make a decision based on the insight you provide. Of course, there's always different perspectives on what's happening in this location, so it would benefit the committee if we could hear the detail that you have for us to assess our position. So would the other officers like to make their presentation?
Yes,
Please
thank you very much.
Thank you.
Good afternoon. I'm Officer Stacy Young. I have 20 years with Los Angeles Police Department. I've been working Detective Support and Vice Division, and I've been currently assigned to our Community Problems Unit for the last 5 years. And one of my tasks that I handle is the Nuisance Abatements, which that consists of if there's a location that traditional means of enforcement has failed, it's our job to come out and try to find out why. What can we do to this location to make this location a better location and stop utilizing our resources, to these problematic locations. I saw one thing in the South End. I work Operation South Bureau. Now I'm the only one. We've had some changes, so I'm the only one. So I have Operation South Bureau, and 77th I had concluded that, or assessed that liquor stores is a big problem in our 77th area. So I got a group of us together, which is Alcohol, Beverage, and Control. I had Building and Safety, the City Attorney's Office, Zoning, my office, 77th Senior Lead Office, and their vice units to collectively meet every 4 to 6 weeks, and we'll come together and have these liquor stores. These liquor stores that we have came about, I got 10 senior lead officers to give me their worst liquor store in their area. So that became my top 10. Each SLO presented me with one liquor store, and for this one, D&D was selected for this particular area.
Even though they have demonstrated, based on their presentation, improvement?
Right, but I'm saying this is how they came about, because in their appeal, they mentioned other liquor stores that are within their area. But I'm letting the board know that this is how they got selected originally, because this process does take time. We started this in '88, okay, and so this process has been going on for a while. So with this, D&D was the one who got selected, and we started this process with them, trying to work with them to make them a better business. Now, one thing we do find out when we meet with the owners, we either find out, one, they did not know about these problems, or two, they didn't care. They don't care about the problem. So that's why, speaking for the property owner, it's imperative that we do not want to wait till there's a problem. We want to be proactive, meeting with the property owners, because guess what? That condition goes with that land, and the property owner is going to be the one that's going to suffer the most if they're not aware of things that's going on until it's too late. We want to talk to them ahead of time. So the 6 months, and again, we can have where they can meet with me, where I'm very flexible. I can go anywhere in the city. I'm citywide based, so we can handle that by making sure that they're meeting with me, that we're having some type of dialogue at least every 6 months, reporting on this business, how they're doing. So if that's something that can be of assistance, they can meet with me personally every 6 months. And again, I'm citywide, so I can go wherever.
So you're making it convenient for them?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Again, this is about us working together to make sure that we're, again, everybody make this a win-win-win situation.
I understand.
As far as the business owner, a little different. I need to stay on top of them a little bit more, because as they said, it is the ultimate responsibility of that business owner. The business owner, I'm meeting with all of these different liquor stores every 3 months. You know, come December, March, July, September, and December are the months that I give, which I've met with D&D Liquor, been out and spoke with them. They all have to do STAR training, which one just finished up,
Right.
you know, with
But
that.
in reference to the conditions, the hours are being objected to. You firmly believe the hours that have been suggested by the report be maintained?
Yes, now the hours, again, collectively, I have several stores that we have that stayed open till 2 o'clock in the morning, and we're finding out that that is not a good thing for the city of Los Angeles. I was absolutely shocked when I started this investigation to find out that liquor stores stayed open to 2 o'clock in the morning. Born and raised in 73rd Broadway, I was born, but I'm now in Newport Beach, different arena. You can't get alcohol 10 o'clock at night. You cannot. But look what kind of city they have. So my thing is, I want my city, where I was born at, to be more productive and not allowing these things to be going on 11, 12, because we know late hours, it's not the kids out there. 10 o'clock, they're supposed to be in the house anyway.
I understand.
So we want some type of restrictions with all the stores, not just those stores. I'm working on all the stores in the city of, at least for South Bureau, Operation South Bureau, to consistently get them closed at 10 o'clock. If you need anything more than that, go to a big store where they'll be willing to ID you, not selling to drunks, not selling to people who don't want to be in the bright light.
Well, I do want to congratulate you, because now I know somebody in Newport Beach that grew up in San Jacinto. That's pretty cool. But I appreciate your insight, and we've got a long agenda, so
Okay.
unless you have another question, I can move on to the next officer. Thank you so much. Officer, do you have anything else to add?
Hi, how you doing? I'll be brief. I'm Detective Moore. I am tasked as the field evaluator for South Bureau and Central Bureau. One of my tasks is to oversee vice operations, and I actually also supervise the unit that Stacy works with. As she alluded to, recently I just lost 30% of the personnel, and again, she's all I have for South Bureau. So we don't have the luxury of redundant enforcement. This location on its own chose or somehow landed in the path that it was deemed a nuisance by the zoning administrator after an investigation. So therefore, I really want to support the zoning administrator's conditions, imposed conditions. I think they'll be helpful. And actually, I'd like to see them a little bit more restrictive than the 11 o'clock. I think 10 o'clock is a fair and prudent time. The other issue that I'd also like to address is I had, like the lieutenant, the opportunity to go to the site, and it was deficient. There was graffiti at the location. There was discarded alcohol, a Patron bottle and a beer bottle on the property, which I photographed, which indicated that even now there's still ongoing issues. So in the interest of time, I just would again like to support the zoning administrator's decisions and conditions and see the conditions remain.
Thank you, Detective Moore. I know, I guess it was 10 years ago, we were working together in Pico Union, Westlake. You did a great job there with the Nuisance hotels and motels and the drug dealing that's going on there, and I appreciate your hard work there. So they're lucky to have you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, sir. Councilman, I think, and I just got noticed that the council office does support the report. and denying the appeal because of the conditions that the council office has been wrestling with, and they would support the recommendations in terms of hours. And for the owners, I understand the convenience issue, but I don't want to sound facetious, but you're hearing from one of the officers that they will meet you wherever, and they're citywide, and so the notion of not being able to meet, I think, has been canceled by the fact that they are suggesting they'll meet with you anywhere. And also, as operators, as owners, what you're hearing, I believe, from the community, from the council office, and certainly from myself, representing a district that has its share of challenges, that when you do have an owner that takes an extra step to take care of their property and their business, it makes a huge difference for the local community, and that's the type of ownership I would hope this could be, that we could reinforce. Councilman, anything else from that?
I have a question for the zoning administrator. I certainly support the zoning administrator and the conditions that are here in LAPD. Like you, Mr. Reyes, I have an area in my district that we are trying to also get into control some problematic businesses that sell alcohol. My only concern is there's a requirement to attend a local business neighborhood watch. Now, if I'm correct, some places have neighborhood watches, others don't. Is there a business neighborhood watch in this area?
Usually that is identified by LAPD. In most often, the cases like this, the revocation cases, LAPD officers are pretty much familiar with that type of organization. In this particular area, I'm not sure, frankly. The condition was written in a way that if they do not have neighborhood watch program, they are not forced to create one. It says as needed basis. So I believe the business operator was trying to find such program in that area, and they couldn't find any. If they couldn't find any, the condition does not force them to create one like that. So it's not going to be in violation of the imposed condition.
Oh, okay. The LAPD, you want to add to that? That she's coming up, yeah. My concern is that they may not be able to meet this if there's no local neighbor.
Well, I made the suggestion to Mike, who's the operator, that we have a CPAB, which is our Community Police Advisory Board. They meet once a month. It's all the community together, all the owners, where they can meet there, and I gave them all the information, the contact person, so that's been taken care of.
That's been taken care of.
That's been taken care of.
But it is
it's not a neighborhood watch. It will be our Community Police Advisory Board. It's a CPAP.
Let's change the language then, because I doubt if there's a local business neighborhood watch. If you're not aware of one, there probably isn't one. They're not at all communities, and so this may be a condition that they can't meet. So we could change that to the community, the CPAB, as they call it.
CPAB, and it's a monthly meeting, and
Yeah.
I gave him all the information, his contact person and everything.
Okay. And would you recommend that both the owner and the operator attend CPAB, or just?
No, I would just want the business owner for the CPAB, and then the 6 months, I'll meet personally with the property owner directly.
Gotcha. So let's make that clear. So the operator, CPAB, the owner of the building, landlord, 6 month with LAPD.
Yes.
Okay, that seems a bit more, that's.
We do it like a January, July.
Yeah.
Make it
That's
simple.
great.
January,
Okay,
July meetings.
and my final comments are to the building owner that said that it was inconvenient. You know, with owning a building and providing a service to the community, there comes responsibility with that, and saying that there's an inconvenience, that's really not an excuse not to fulfill these conditions, so. But I think the thing that worked out here now is a 6-month LAPD, and as they said, they want you to also feel some responsibility for the things that go on in your building, and I think that's reasonable in my mind, have the operator go once a month. They're there, they're operating there every day, and working with CPAB, I think that makes a little bit more sense. Yeah.
Councilman, we have a difference in the recommendation with the hours. So one of the things I'd like to suggest that we go with 11 o'clock, and if the council wants to, the district wants to restrict it even further to agree with the LAPD's recommendations, they can make that suggestion in the council floor, since I don't have a deputy here from District 9. So I myself would favor the LAPD's support or suggestion, but because it is, I believe, discretion for the district office, we'll give them that opportunity, given the process. So at this point, we'll go with the 11 o'clock hour as suggested by the ZA, and we'll make the District 9 office aware that the LAPD is suggesting 10 p.m., and if they want to change it in council, then that'll be the discretion of the council office. Are you okay with that?
Yes.
Okay, all right, so that'll be the action of this committee.
As amended on the
As
other
amended.
condition, yeah, as amended.
Actually, we're done. Is it, we're done, sir. You can come back in council.
No, but this is actually unfair because if everybody else on the street is open till 12.
Sir, we're done with the discussion.
You should
Thank
talk to the local council office, District 9, Jan Perry's office. As the chair mentioned, it's up to them to propose whether there should be a change. You could bring that up to them before this item gets to council, full council.
Okay, that'll be the action of this committee. Okay, everything, next.
So it's a denial of the appeal with the revised language for
Exactly.
the CPAC and the LAPD meetings.
As amended by Councilman Wisdom,
Right.
right? And
Okay.
that,
The next item, council members, is item 5, which is a report from the planning department. It's a general plan amendment and also a zone change. It relates to the construction of a retail shopping center in CD6.
Good afternoon. My name is Jay Kim. I was the hearing officer for this case. On May 20th last month, the City Planning Commission approved this case. As mentioned, a zone change and a general plan amendment, along with several other entitlements. What's before you today is a general plan amendment from a low-density residential to a neighborhood commercial designation for a portion of the site, and a zone change from R1 to TQ C2 EZ1VF for the corresponding portion. Since the approval of the commission for this project, the applicant has brought up 2 items. One is a condition number 17, which addresses pedestrian access, and this condition stipulates that walkways for pedestrians be provided between all the pads as well as from and to the public right-of-ways. And just as a brief background, in approving this, the commission had approved the parking, reduced the parking from 274 parking spaces that was originally approved to a ratio of 4 parking spaces per 1,000 square feet of floor area, which would essentially reduce the parking by about 20 spaces. In doing so, this would give some physical leeway in providing these walkways. Staff does recognize, however, that in applying this condition strictly, there could be some difficulties, and staff is open to your discretion in entertaining a modified walkway plan. And I have, staff has also communicated this with the applicant, and they are here today. Another issue is a cul-de-sac issue, which is under condition 2A3 under T1, which is a T condition that addresses the engineering, street improvement, and dedication issue. In incorporating this condition, it is requiring the Blythe Street in the rear of the property to be improved and dedicated, and create a cul-de-sac for a fire access that would be gated. In doing so, it stipulates the width of the improvements and dedications. However, it doesn't address how far this cul-de-sac can be placed within the proposed site, and that is the issue here. In addressing this further, since that condition, engineering department has weighed in on the fact that they are fine with a revision to the condition that the applicant is requesting to lock a substantial conformance with the way it is proposed on the site plan. And I've been notified by engineering that they are fine with that.
so we have some sense of predictability now that BOE, Bureau of Engineering, has made their position clear?
Clear, yes.
So the vagueness has been eliminated?
I believe that is the case in terms of the request that the applicant is requesting for. The language has been agreed upon by BOE.
All right. So we have language now that specifically states the nature and dimensions of this cul-de-sac?
The language has been submitted by the applicant, and that is before you, and BOE is fine with that, yeah, and that would actually tie that language to the site plan that is presented.
So that eliminates that concern, okay.
Yes.
Anything else you'd like to add?
One other minor issue is that for that condition, there was a typo in terms of the half street width from 20 to 30, and that was also communicated to the applicant, and that applicant agrees that this is actually what is proposed on the site and agrees that this is a typo. And that's also provided to you.
And that's been clarified as well?
Yes.
Okay. Any questions for the staff? All right. So let's hear the public comment period here, and we do have I believe the representatives. Is it Michael Russell?
Good afternoon, Chairman Reyes and the Plum Committee. I'm Michael Laughlin from SOMAS, and I'm representing the Lancashire Retail Group this afternoon. And we're pleased to be here after about 2 years of working with the city to get our approvals of the general plan amendment and zone change. And really, we just have the two items, and it looks like the one item has been dealt with regarding the cul-de-sac. I'd be happy to answer any questions about that, but we just would encourage you to adopt the language that's in our letter of May 13th, 2010 on that issue. And then with regards to the pedestrian circulation, we were cut short at the Planning Commission meeting due to their agenda and loss of a quorum, so we were kind of rushed and there wasn't any closure, and the condition is very open-ended and seems to indicate that we need to provide pedestrian access to all of the streets, and which for safety reasons or because of our commitment to the neighbors on the cul-de-sac here on Blythe. In our community meetings with the neighborhood and our going door to door, we agreed that there would be a gate and a fire gate only and no pedestrian access, so people wouldn't be parking in the neighborhood and loitering behind the shopping center. So that's one pedestrian connection we can't make. And then another that we can't make is between the CVS pharmacy and Lancashire, because it would occur right at the main project driveway. So we're just, again, we're just concerned that, if when this goes to get a building permit, if there's, someone that says we need to provide a pedestrian connection to every building from the street and then from every building within the shopping center to every other building, that would be problematic and cause a wholesale redesign of the project. So I do have the architect here, Lancashire Retail Group, and a representative from CVS to answer any questions.
Well, I'd like to have the staff come back to the microphone, and I'm hearing two different things. It sounds like two different issues, but can staff come back up? Would you mind responding to Mr. Laughlin's assertions, and given what he is stating now versus what the report is recommending?
At the time of the commission, one of the commissioners did bring this issue up clearly as an issue, and after presented by the staff that this, in terms of the walkway not being present on the site plan, after staff had presented that there's a condition to address that, the commission as a whole did agree that they would like to keep that condition in there to provide pedestrian access.
And does that mean it's going to curtail or complicate the circulation for the site and its parking? Because that's what I'm hearing Mr. Laughlin addressing. And
yes.
Are they conflicting or can they be complementary?
I believe as presented, as mentioned, the number of parking spaces are based on 274 spaces. the commission did reduce it based on ratio. That would essentially reduce the number of parking spaces required by about 20. So that would actually free up those spaces to kind of reconfigure some of the parking spaces and add a little more walkways. Now, as mentioned, staff does recognize there has to be a bit of a reconfiguration in terms of the redesign. And if I may, we can entertain a design, maybe not to the strict language that's in the condition, but something that the team can come up with, and maybe we could also work with them in terms of enhancing the design, but also providing some
So I'm hearing you
flexibility.
propose a middle ground here.
Yes.
What you're saying is, let's reassess the circulation pattern of the parking so that we could influence a design that creates a pedestrian experience
yes.
that introduces trees and walkways without compromising the parking capacity of the site.
Absolutely.
Is that what you're saying?
Yes.
Okay.
So because of the reduced parking spaces, there is some more space to create walkways, and in all, that would actually create more pedestrian friendliness and safety in terms of walking around this several acre shopping center.
Mr. Laughlin, I'd just like to get your reaction to this because this is something we'd like to act on, and we don't want to deter business. I understand you've been at this for 2 years, but I also know that these are opportunities to create oxygenization with trees, turn down the heat footprint with more pedestrian-oriented landscaping, and stimulate the type of environment that makes it that much more pleasurable to be there, and they can actually attract more customers. And they're willing to work with you to reconfigure your circulation. Are you okay with that?
Well, I guess what we would request is just maybe some tightening of the wording of condition 17 to basically state that we're not required to have a connection at Blythe, and we're not required to have a connection to Pad E from Lancashire because of the driveway and loading zone. We would support a connection to Pad A, which is the fast food restaurant, to Lancashire, so we can provide pedestrian access there. We can also provide pedestrian access from Pad A to Pad E, which is the CVS, and CVS is already connected to Pads D and C through a walkway here.
Before, I don't want to micromanage this design. Why don't we do this? Why don't I ask you guys to talk amongst each other. I'm going to go to the next item. I'll hold this on the table. If you come back with a recommendation, at least the middle ground, then we can move on this item.
Okay.
But do you have let's let the staff give one more comment.
If I may, on that issue, staff actually would recommend, or if you would permit us to actually delete that condition and permit the applicant to submit a revised plan that would actually work with what they're concerned with, and before it goes before the full council, we could include that as Exhibit B, per se, and kind of eliminate the complications of wordings. So we'd rather actually delete that and then just work with them in terms of coming up with the enhanced walkway, if that would
I
work.
think that's, are you guys okay with that? Because we're trying to move this forward, so, great. Let's hear from the council
I think it'll
office.
make it easier. Yeah.
Okay, let's hear from the council office.
Good afternoon, council members. My name is Daniel Skolnick for Councilmember Tony Cardenas of the 6th District. It sounds like we've worked out all the details here. Thank you very much for your hard work there. This is a great project for the Sun Valley community. It will bring jobs and neighborhood-serving businesses, and we thank you for your help here with this project.
Okay, so we'll move forward with the understanding, and Robert, I think you might want to help me here, but...
Well, you would approve it, and then you would delete condition number 17 and ask that they come back before the council with a revised recommendation as to the walkway plans.
Okay, so we can move forward with that, and I hope the council understands that we want to be supportive, business-friendly. They've been through their trials and tribulations, but we also know we have opportunities to create these environments that make it much cooler.
It was condition 17, correct?
That was condition number, double check, 17, yes. Under page Q3. And also the other condition that is revised per the request.
Can you show it to Mr. Bertone?
Okay, so we're fine with the recommended language?
Yep.
Councilman, are you okay?
Yes.
So move forward with the suggested changes, and hopefully by the time we get to council, we can come up with some level of compromise in the middle ground. Okay? Thank you very much. Roberto, next item.
The next item, council members, is item 6. It's a report from the Cultural Heritage Commission. It has to do with the recommendation to include the Letno Brick Court in Echo Park as a historic cultural monument.
Good afternoon, committee members. Lambert Giesinger with the Department of City Planning. Before you today is a recommendation from the Cultural Heritage Commission to declare this property an historic cultural monument, and finding that it embodies the distinguishing characteristics of an architectural type for an example of courtyard housing in Los Angeles. It's also worth noting that this property was identified in the seminal book on courtyard housing by Stefanos Palazoides as a good example of courtyard housing.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Mark Hirsch.
Good afternoon.
Give us your name and address, please.
Mark Hirsch, 19261 Burnetta Place, Tarzana, California.
And
I'm the owner of D&H Management, which is the owner of the property.
okay, so you filled out your card. You wanted to make a statement to the committee?
I guess so, yeah. Obviously, I'm just a local businessman just trying to make a living here. And I'm not necessarily opposed to what's going on, but I guess I wanted to make sure that I stated a few issues or items so that they're on record. We're in the process of, as this property, I don't know if you're familiar with the property, but it's on Sunset near downtown. It's a property that's very old and is constantly in need of repairs that we work on as best as we can, including in that is occasionally requiring the replacement or repair of windows. Windows being both on the interior and the exterior part of the property. And I'm just concerned that the most economic way to repair these is sometimes going to be affecting the exterior part of the building, and I don't want that to be an influence where there's a significant financial impact to us in getting things repaired.
Okay, so my understanding that the department has been working with folks like yourselves who would have referrals to different programs, state tax credits, there's different...
Yeah, I think you're referring to the Mills Act,
right.
Which is a very limited reimbursement because it's limited to, what I understand, is it's limited to the the amount of money that you pay out in property tax and a reduction of your property tax. And, the cost of repair is significant sometimes compared to what maybe just your property taxes are.
So this designation that's being proposed, you're saying will hinder your ability to maintain it?
I guess I'm just concerned. I don't, our goal is to repair things as necessary and try to prevent by doing repairs prior to problems that occur. I'm unfamiliar with the process. It's the first time we've had it's not like I bought the property as it being a historical monument or in process of that. But then all of a sudden be thrown this to us. I'm just trying to get a handle on it and just making aware that we're changing windows as required now.
Have you had a chance to speak with each other on this case?
We spoke just briefly.
Why don't you come up? Why don't we set up a time with yourself and you and someone from my staff and see how we can engage some of these issues in a more specific manner? Can we do that?
We had a chance to speak briefly at the site tour, but certainly our office is available for consultation and discussing these issues, which are quite prevalent among many historic cultural monument property owners. Things like window repair versus replacement. This property is adjacent to the Angelino Heights HPOZ, so there's a number of resources out there that.
Well, this property is in my district as well, so I would like to offer my staff to you and how we can work together and see if we can come up with some kind of a strategy, looking at some kind of a phased approach that makes it possible to accomplish while allowing for this designation to occur.
Yeah, again, if I can get that, if I can have that comfort, obviously, as a business owner, and born and raised in Los Angeles, I want to preserve the Los Angeles look as
Right.
well. So I don't want to oppose it. I just want to be able to prepare and be ready for it, so that way I don't have everything happen and it snowballs into something that I can no longer handle and I can't hold onto the property.
Well, I'll make this commitment that our staff, the planning staff, will meet with you and we'll try to lay out some kind of a strategy that prevents that snowball from occurring.
Okay, I appreciate that.
Okay, so we would move to, as a consent, move to approve the report. Have a second on that?
Yes.
That'll be the action of this committee.
All right, great.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Next item, Roberto?
So you're approving the designation, correct?
Yes.
Okay. The next item is item 8. It's an appeal by Andrew Schwartz, Robert Blue, Doug Haynes from the La Mirada Neighborhood Association, and they're represented by Robert Silverstein. This has to do with the construction of a Target store in CD13.
Good afternoon. Please introduce yourself.
Good afternoon, council members and the Smith LA City Planning. Just very briefly, I'd like to give you some background about the proposed project. It is the construction of approximately 190,000 square feet of retail to be located at the corner of Western and Sunset within the Hollywood Community Plan area, specifically within the Vermont Western Transit-Oriented District Specific Plan area. Initially, when the project came in, it was requested to be in excess of about 80 feet in height. It was also going to include about 30,000 square feet of other accessory commercial uses such as retail and food uses. In June of 2009, the Central Area Planning Commission approved modified request on this project. There were exception requests asked for. 3 primary exceptions were asked for. One, to seek relief from the requirement of having to provide free delivery for purchases made at the site. That's for any business, commercial business over 40,000 square feet in size. Also, an exception was asked and granted for excess height, and as I said initially, the height was to be in excess of 80 feet. The project was brought down, and the maximum building height that was approved by the commission was 74 feet. Thirdly, an exception request was asked for to provide increased parking on the site. As indicated, the project is located within a TOD area. Basically, a commercial project of this size would be required to provide in excess of 600 parking spaces on site. Because the intent of the TOD is to promote transit use, the specific plan has a requirement for on-site parking that would, in this case, only permit in excess of about 300 plus parking spaces on the site. The applicant has basically asked to provide an additional 60 parking spaces. There were various exceptions requested, all which have to do with the physical design of the building. Those exceptions were to the development standards and the building design guidelines. Just in general, it's to allow a building in excess of 40 feet is required to have setbacks along the second floor, so they've asked for relief for that. Building in excess of 40 feet is also required along the roof line to have varied treatment in the facade, varied treatment in the roof line, I'm sorry. This was accomplished, however, in this project through use of varied types of materials. Also, quickly, there was a request to provide a relief from the requirement that doors and windows on the ground floor occupy approximately 50% transparency. The applicant has asked for and was granted a 25% maximum with regard to that request. Additionally, a conditional use for alcoholic beverage request was approved, and a project permit compliance with the specific plan. Quickly, though, with regard to the appeal request, there were three primary issues brought forth in the appeal. The first being the findings. There were various findings made with regard to this particular case. Staff has submitted additional findings to the city clerk. Those findings do not change the commission's initial decision, but hopefully augment and clarify those adopted findings. Secondly, there were two administrative issues that were brought up in the appeal. Both those corrections were basically typos and have been corrected, and that has also been submitted to the city clerk. The third issue is with regard to the environmental document. An expanded M&D was done for this particular project. It was circulated, and a final initial study was issued in March of 2009. That final study found that there were no unavoidable significant impacts identified by this particular project. With regard to transportation or traffic issues, there were recommendations made, brought forth from the Los Angeles Department of Transportation. All of those requirements with regard to street improvements were included or have been included as part of the determination and as environmental mitigation. Also, there was issue with regard to the loss of scenic vistas. There were no scenic vistas identified in the environmental review at all. Responses to these particular issues were brought forth and were responded to within the initial study. Staff has also submitted additional background information with regard to the CEQA document for the clerk to help support and in response to the appeal. It's a lot of information, and I just basically wanted to give an overview. If you have any questions at this point in time, I'd like to address those. Otherwise, I will gladly allow for the applicant to come and give a more description of the project.
I appreciate that, Linda. Can you just, in general terms, give me ballpark figures of how many committee meetings were connected with this project? How
many community meetings?
Community meetings.
Okay, I don't have that particular information, just the required public hearing and the Area Planning Commission meeting.
How long has this been baking, in other words?
As I indicated, this was before the Central Area Planning Commission in June of 2009, and I held my public hearing on the matter in April of last year.
Okay. Any questions for the staff?
Yeah, the traffic report, what did the traffic report indicate in terms of the new trips that would be generated, and how does that fit into the local area's traffic issues?
A traffic study was done by Overland Transportation. That traffic study was submitted to our Department of Transportation. It was reviewed. LA DOT recommended very specific environmental mitigation with regard to traffic. Requirements such as improvement on at specific intersections where level of service was to be impacted. Also, transportation demand management program is also being required. DOT also provided recommended a 20% reduction in transit. And that was based basically on the project being located within a TOD, also with the implementation of all the physical street improvements that are called forth, and also provision of pedestrian amenities. This is the first new construction in the area that will be providing pedestrian level activity and pedestrian orientation along the street front. Things in particular like wider sidewalks. So the 20% transit credit was based on those particular items, and that transit credit was recommended by LADOT.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. So let's begin the public comment process, and unless there's anything else to be added by the staff? No? Okay. All right, we do have a few names for the representing the appellants, I believe, and Mike, we have Andrew Schwartz, Robert Blue, appellant, would like to come on up. But you also have a David Bell, that's representing Robert Blue, appellants. I'm not sure who's going to speak first, or either one. Please give us your name and address.
Okay, Robert Blue, Los Angeles. This chair and other council members have given eloquent arguments in favor of good planning, transit-oriented, and pedestrian-friendly development. This project has neither, and it is not the fault of the applicant target. It is the fault of the city not enforcing their own guidelines for good long-term planning, which means following the Vermont Western Transit-Oriented District-specific plan. The question is not whether there will be a target at Sunset and Western. If it makes good business sense, it will happen. Whether it is built under this community plan guidelines or not. As we heard by the presentation, the applicant is getting many of the benefits from the taxpayers, from the citizens of Los Angeles, but they're not giving back. They have cherry-picked out some critical elements that was very well presented to you today. Several of them including free delivery. They're taking away they're getting more parking. They're taking away setbacks, roof line exceptions, relief from what we call, if we're really pedestrian-oriented development, then we would have more 50% of the facade, sidewalk entrance to the development. That's what we're all about. Otherwise, we're kidding ourselves and we're throwing everything we're talking about out the door. So why don't you enforce the community plan and have this store built right? Thank you.
David Bell. Also on behalf of the appellant.
Yes, I'm on behalf of the appellant. I'm an attorney, David Bell, on behalf of appellant Robert Blue. And we have a lot of we have a lot of experts here today, so I think that they can go into more detail on some of the specifics of the plan and some of the problems that we're talking about. And I think what I'd just like to say is I'd like to sort of urge the City of LA, urge this committee to kind of take a deep breath and realize what we're talking about here. We're talking about a Target store. There's no rush. There's no need to rush to judgment on something like this. I know everybody seems to want this store to go here, but Target is a business. They're not doing this as a charity to be nice to us. If we make them follow the rules of the community plan, they're not going to go away. And it looks to me that they're building this store here because they know it's a good place to build a store and make a lot of money. That's what they want to do. There's no reason to push this through, and this approach has a feel to me like a done deal. It just looks like it's going through, and they're kind of going through the motions. And I think there are two paths, basically, that can be taken here. The first path is we can work with the developers, work with the city, sit down, figure out how a project like this can be done in accordance with the community plan, or we can take a detour through the courthouse and challenge these things in court. And if you look at the people that are here, the appellants here today, they're not they're not going to go away. There's a stack of documents this tall against the stack of documents this tall in support of this project. So it's either sit down and do it right from the beginning, or don't and try to push it through, take the route to the courthouse, and go back to the beginning when we can sit down and do it right. Because the findings simply aren't there. I mean, the city in this case seems determined to do this the wrong way. The exceptions to the specific plan are not supported by the required findings. If you look at the city's report, the findings simply aren't there. The ones that are there don't make any sense, and the ones, and most of them simply aren't there. They're asking for 9 exceptions to the specific plan, and they haven't made the required findings. And frankly, with respect to the EIR, if I might just say, the standard that they're applying to have an EIR in this matter is that they're saying that the people requesting an EIR, which is the heart of CEQA, which is the thing that a community uses to get the information as to whether this project is good for its community, and they're saying that they haven't provided substantial evidence of a significant impact, but that's not the standard. The standard is whether there's substantial evidence of a fair argument that there's a significant impact. And I think you can't look at a project like this and say that that's not the case. Thank you.
Thank you. Doug Haynes? Are you also with the appellant?
I'm representing them, yeah.
Oh, you are?
Since I'm representing them, and this is the hearing, I have about 4.5 minutes of...
No. Do you have a card submitted?
I do.
You do? Okay.
Right.
I have to look for it. All right.
Should be
Please go ahead.
somewhere.
Well, we'll give you more time. Why don't you just start, and then we'll see how far we go.
Very good. Honorable Council Members Reyes and Huizar, Daniel Wright of the Silverstein Law Firm, 215 North Marengo Avenue, Pasadena, 91101, on behalf of La Mirada Avenue Neighborhood Association of Hollywood, the appellant in this case. I'd like to begin with the appellant's presentation by quoting Greg Steinhaffel, President, CEO of Target Corporation, at its annual shareholder meeting on June 9th, 2010. In discussing the proposed Hollywood Target store, Mr. Steinhaffel stated, "We would like nothing better than to relieve some of the pressure off of our West Hollywood store because it's in the top 5. And I'm assuming that means the top 5 in sales. So, and then back to his quote, "So it is a $100 million plus facility for us, and we would love nothing better than to build back in that market." So, and then he goes on, "So we've got our head of property development, John Griffith, here in the front row, and between John, myself, and Doug, we will take another look at that site and we'll work more aggressively to see if we can't put together a plan that's good for our shareholders and open a store there over the next couple of years. Okay, thank you." That was the shareholder meeting of the 9th of June, 2010, just weeks ago. On previous occasions, I have discussed with this committee the concept of good corporate citizenship and how it is sorely lacking in this project. The question for the council in this case is, what is the balance between the interests of Target shareholders and the interests of the resident community that this store is proposed to serve for 40, 50 years. The community interest is expressed in terms of the specific plan. Target's estimated construction cost, stated in its documents, is about $50 million. And they're bringing in about over $100 million a year in West Hollywood. So just run that math a little bit. The CEO just has testified that West Hollywood's annual gross sales is over $100 million. The proposed Hollywood store would likely gross significant sales volume as well. And despite this reality, that strongly suggests that Target could financially afford to underground the parking.
Mr. Wright, if you can, let's focus on the case. You're talking about
that is the
okay, so I want you to focus on the case.
The essence of this case is whether or not, because they're saying they financially, it is not feasible for them to underground this project. And if they do, they can stay within the 35-foot height limit. This is an exception that is more than double the height limit of the specific plan. That's a big issue here. Okay. In terms of economic feasibility.
Let's see if we can start
winding. So Target could choose to bring this project largely into compliance with the specific plan limits, and that would be a more balanced outcome in this case, one that is lucrative to the Target shareholders, but is fair to the community as well. In the proposed findings in support of the 9 exceptions for the specific plan, they argue that there is something unique about this flat parcel of land that justifies not constructing underground parking. Somehow, almost all of the existing surrounding businesses have no problem making a good profit in their stores with underground parking. But Target would have this council believe that underground parking is not feasible because it's too expensive to build. The transcript of the shareholders' meeting suggests otherwise, and the community looks to this council to enforce the zoning with more balance than this. In this case, the record...
Can you start concluding?
I'm trying to get there. In this case, the record is overwhelming that the city cannot make the findings in support of the exceptions, and exceptions are essentially another form of variance. Target voluntarily entered into a 75-year lease here. A lease that its representative has stated publicly allows Target out of it if it does not get the entitlements that it likes. So this entitlement process in front of you represents no serious financial risk to Target. It is simply seeing if it could follow the old adage of Gail Goldberg that the value of land is not based upon this current zoning, but what the applicant thinks it can get out of this council. The current proposed findings make a mockery of the city's zoning variance process. In fact, with the late submitted submittals that the planner suggested, and I don't know if those are the submittals that were made on June 15th or if more have come in the transom today, but so far they do not make the findings that are required. In fact, you should have a chart that shows the current status, that there's like nothing written on some of these findings at all.
Okay, Mr. Wright, please finish.
Yes, I will. And if it so happens, Mr. Reyes, that city staff or council office now will get up after our testimony and lob in these new findings, I want to enter into this record an objection on grounds of due process that the public and the appellants have had no fair opportunity to review anything so late submitted. And finally, a word about the EIR, simply that there are significant impacts of aesthetics, traffic, and noise. These are well documented in the submittals. And as Mr. Bell said, there is a fair argument that significant impacts will occur. So council members, you both have extensive planning backgrounds. The community calls on you to avoid litigation by lawfully enforcing the condition and conditioning this project. Therefore, the appeal should be granted and the matter returned to planning for further revisions to address legitimate planning concerns.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Well, past the 4 minutes. Doug Haynes.
Good afternoon. My name is Doug Haynes of the La Mirada Avenue Neighborhood Association, and I'll just try to be very brief on this. I've been coming before you since last fall and talking about this project. Target's had almost a year to resolve these differences. Instead, they've had a year to do an EIR, and yet they refuse to do it. They've had a year to consider a different project, and they refuse to do that. They originally came in according to testimony at the Central Area Planning Commission with a suburban-style store for this site, so there was another original design that would fit SNAP. And Ms. Bernard at the Central Area Planning Commission said that they didn't want that for Hollywood. So in essence, what they've come in with is a redesigned project that now the City Planning Department is trying to adapt to the zoning code. And that's not what the process is supposed to be. First off, this is a 74-foot height approval, plus they got an approval to eliminate setbacks above the roof line for another 10 feet to put in vertical elements, so it's 84 feet in height. And that's the same height as the arc-light parking structure in Hollywood. It's the same length as the arc-light parking structure, and it's the same massing. So in our neighborhood, which is designed to be low level, that's exactly what we don't need in order to preserve our views. And also Target is saying there's actually going to be less traffic with a Target store than there currently is with existing businesses on the site. Farm Fresh Ranch Market, and the CVS Pharmacy, which is ludicrous. We're overwhelmed by traffic. We have the third highest residential density in the United States in East Hollywood. We just want honesty on this, and that's all it's about. We just want Target to be honest and the City Planning Department to be honest. If we're going to have a store for 75 years, which we all welcome, then let's do it right instead of doing it the wrong way.
Mr. Haynes, I had asked you a question before in another case some time back. Mm-hmm. and you came back to the council with an offensive tone because I asked you this question. But I want to ask you, who sits on the La Mirada Avenue Association?
Well, the reason it was offensive to ask that question, and I'll get into that, the reason it was offensive is because to have a government committee ask for a list of names of a citizen group, it just harkens back to communism.
If we're being honest, there's nothing to hide. If we're being honest, we should just know who we're talking to. That's all I'm asking. That should not be offensive. All I'm asking is, who sits on this association? That's all I'm asking. How is that offensive?
Well, first off, I brought all my neighbors out. If you remember the Camp Hill Lofts development, all my neighbors came out in that case, and they were ignored. That's why they don't show up anymore. You remember what happened in that. We went to court. At the time, the city attorney said, we're not going to defend this case. We don't care about it. The developer came back. They revised the project like we'd always been asking for, and everyone was happy. La Mirada was created as a community organization. LAUSD came in almost 6 years ago and said, we're going to wipe out your neighborhood to put in a school. And what we found out is that all the decisions were made prior to LAUSD having hearings. It's the people who live in this community. I came to this community in 1989. My neighbors and I stuck it out after the riots. We stuck it out after the earthquake. They're the people who have held Hollywood together when other people fled. And so when developers come in with no connection to Hollywood, and they say, okay, it's all going to change, or we have a new council member, and the council member refuses to talk to us. Ms. Bernard has never discussed the Target situation with any of us, or with the neighborhood council, which opposes it. And we have this door slammed in our face all the time. Yeah, we have no choice but to appeal these decisions. If you want to meet my neighbors, I invite you to come out. We would love to have you over for dinner. And they're happy to have you. And you remember us from LAUSD. When Celestine and our neighbors came out and argued in support of preserving our community. And we could have just taken the money back then on the real estate market was much higher and let our homes be demolished, but we stayed. And this has been a huge struggle for us, and I don't want to take up your time on this, but it's an enormous struggle in the investment of time and money. I basically destroyed my career in order to advocate on behalf of my neighbors, and my neighbors have voted me onto the neighborhood council because of my work for them. Then to have some developer come in and say, we're just some shadow organization is offensive to me. I grew up in Minnesota. I grew up in Roseville where the Target store first opened. I remember the Midwestern values that were really put into me as a child. And Aaron Epstein, who was one of the original stockholders in Target, spoke about how the Dayton family came out and bought his father's Pickwick bookstore and how he recognized those Midwestern values of honesty and hard work and being dedicated to your community. Those are the values that I try to have when I come before this committee, that I try to represent from our neighbors. So when Target comes in and says, up yours, we're not going to do anything that the community wants, then it's offensive. And that invitation is sincere. I hope you and also Councilman Weezer will come and have dinner with us.
Thank you for that. Okay, our next speaker. Does that cover all the appellants? I believe it does. We have one more coming up. I want to make sure I cover all the appellants first. Then we'll hear from the applicant, and then we'll go to the public comment.
I'm Dick Platkin, former LA City planner and now a land use planning consultant for the La Mirada Neighborhood Association. I have written testimony, and let me briefly summarize it. As I've told you before, I do not believe that the finding E for consistency with the general plan is acceptable. And let me explain why. If you look at the LA City Charter, sections 556 and 558, exceptions to a specific plan are one of a long list of land use entitlements which must comply with the goals, the intent of the specific plan, including any of its elements. In this case, the central element of the general plan of the City of Los Angeles is the general plan framework The general plan framework is a growth-neutral document. It means that you can have deviations or amendments to existing plans, to zones, to height limits, if you can document growth that requires those changes. In the case of Hollywood, there has been virtually no growth since the framework was adopted in '95 based on 1990 data. Let me be a little bit clearer. In 1990, the population of Hollywood was 213,860. The best guess of the planning department from its own data is that at present there's 226,000 people in Hollywood. The framework projected that Hollywood would grow by 42,000 people. It only grew by 12,000 people. It projected that there would be 17,000 new housing units. According to the planning department's website, there's only 2,700. The threshold that the general plan requires for deviations from land, from a specific plan cannot be met. You would have to demonstrate that Hollywood has had growth that exceeded the population forecast of the framework. In this case, they haven't come close, and there's no rationale for granting these land use entitlements based on consistency with the general plan.
But are you on the record as an appellant?
Yes, I'm representing the appellants. I've been hired by the appellants.
Okay, I just want to make sure who I'm speaking to. Thank you.
Okay.
All right, so that covers all the appellants on record. We'd like to go with the applicant, and we would like to support the applicant and the representative, if you will. Good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon. Eric Paget from Target Corporation. A little request. We've had quite a few supporters here that have spent some time. Is it possible for them to go first and then I can stand up and do a presentation?
It's a little awkward, but you want them to speak first before the presentation?
Just in respect for their time.
Okay, we'll give them 2 minutes each. We'll go through this.
Thank you.
Okay. Those who are in support, we have Philip Hart. Are you here? I believe it's Laurent Gibler. Good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon. My name is Philip Hart. I live at 5548 Green Oak Drive, Los Feliz section of Hollywood. I'm here to speak in support of the Target store at its current location. My family, my wife, my granddaughter, and I, we do a lot of our retail shopping in that area at the Home Depot, Yogurtland, and I would like to see a Target come into that site. I think it would be beneficial for the retail community in that area. I've lived in that neighborhood over 20 years, and I am in support of positive development. I'm an urban planner and a member of the Urban Land Institute, also a member of the Hollywood Chamber of Commerce and the Friends of Hollywood Central Park. So I'm very involved and invested in the community. I appreciate the concern and comments on both sides of the issue, but overall my assessment is that this would be a beneficial addition to our community. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Laurent Gibler, I believe. Good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon, Commissioners and Council members. I'm Laurent Gibler, President and CEO of the Hollywood Chamber of Commerce, here today speaking on behalf of the Chamber to let you know that our Chamber Board, on behalf of our more than 900 members, has voted strongly in support of this project. 60 years ago, Hollywood had one of the most attractive and desirable shopping areas in all of Southern California. We had the BHDS department store, we had the Broadway department store, we had JCPenney's, we had Sears, we had J.J. Newberry's, we had Woolworths, we had Cy DeVore's Haberdashery, and many more. Those all evaporated after World War II, gradually disappearing, and Hollywood went downhill. For the last 30 years, Hollywood residents have been forced to leave Hollywood to shop. Glendale's gotten our tax revenues, West Hollywood, and they've shopped elsewhere. So I can tell you there's tremendous interest and desire in the Hollywood community to have retail back in the community, and recently we've started seeing it moving back in. We believe this Target store is going to be a huge asset for our community. We believe it's located in a great location. If you talk about traffic, where could you find a better location on two major commercial thoroughfares? It's abutted by commercial buildings, not by residential. If you look for the nearest non-commercial buildings, behind it you'll find the Assistance League of Southern California, a little further away, Covenant House. The Assistance League, I understand, spoke at the last meeting in favor of this project. And I can tell you over the years, the Assistance League had problems with the previous development there. They had a recycling center there. They had problems with the policing of the area around the previous grocery store and the other businesses. So they're in favor of it. Covenant House, I can tell you, they house more than 90 at-risk youth. The jobs created by Target are going to provide some jobs that I think some of their youth could qualify for. So there's some real benefits there. You know about the tax benefits to the city. We support the project. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Sam Commission.
Good afternoon. Sam Kabushian, a 30-year plus veteran of East Hollywood.
Sound like a war hero.
1264 North Hobart. I guess within that La Mirada Neighborhood Association I live. I'm neighbors with Doug and a few others. I'm the currently honorary president of the Armenian American Chamber of Commerce, Little Armenia Chapter. This particular project is in the heart of Little Armenia. And Little Armenia is practically a quite large geographic designation within East Hollywood. And I'm here today, I do believe obviously in responsible development and accountability. And I think past 3 years since I know this project has been going through these scrutiny and reviews and so forth. So I believe after 3 years and having an 88% renter in East Hollywood, renters, and we're out to help these people. And then since the earthquake, since the riots, of the early 90s, I think this community is in a position of rebounding and regaining position in the marketplace due to some of the benefits of tourism on Central Hollywood. So I strongly support this project. I believe we can get the immigrants who have been here in the neighborhood for the last 20 years from Salvador, from Eastern Europe or post-Soviet Union, to start applying their skills and working for an organization. Mom and pop businesses will benefit from this as well. And I think down the road, it will impact a more larger economic benefit. And I think in addition to that, less the jobs and obviously the benefits. I spoke with Target since the initial development of this project. I want the local people, handymans, carpenters, tile layers, hardwood layers. I want these people directly to benefit from the services of the development of the Target store. Sort of take pride in the project. And I absolutely agree with LeBron. Hollywood it was a destination for shoppers, during the 60s and into early 70s. So I absolutely support the project, and I believe also, in addition to what I represent, Little Armenian Neighborhood Association is one of the organizations that I'm involved with.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Tom Trinan? Is Tom Trinan here? And Grant King? What we'll do is we'll just finish all the public comments, then we'll ask the applicant to do their thing, and then we'll go from there. Mr.
Good afternoon, Councilman Reyes.
Good afternoon.
Committee members. My name is Tom Trinan, address 1680 North Vine Street in Hollywood. And as identifying myself as a Hollywood stakeholder, I office in Hollywood. I work for a company, Millennium Partners, who own significant real estate, the Capitol Records building and the parking lot surrounding it. I serve on 3 boards in Hollywood: the Police Activities League Board, the Hollywood Chamber Board. I'm also a member of the Friends of Hollywood Central Park. I speak in favor of the Target development, and I feel strongly that it's part of all the great renaissance that's occurring in Hollywood. There are a number of important retailers that have been investing in Hollywood over the last few years, including most recently Trader Joe's, the Hard Rock Cafe, Madame Tussauds, and a number of excellent restaurants that create tremendous nightlife and life in general in Hollywood. So I speak strongly in favor of this kind of development that brings life to a much needed part of Hollywood. It brings jobs. It will service the future residents, ongoing residents of Hollywood, and it will bring the tax revenues from West Hollywood into Hollywood. So I'm much in favor. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Trinan. Jim McQuiston. We're going to go through the cards and we'll just go through everybody.
Jim McQuiston.
Oh, I did? All right. I'm sorry, Jim. Can we, Mr. McQuiston? I called this other gentleman after him.
Sorry.
No, my apologies. It's my fault. Sorry about that, sir.
Hi, Grant King, 1605 Cahuenga Boulevard. I'm a local property owner and business owner. I couldn't be more excited to be here to talk about Hollywood and the Renaissance. The fact that we have a national chain not only willing to come here but to invest in Hollywood says a lot about the Renaissance of Hollywood, and I think we should support it. I think I'm not here to discount any of the things that people have said, but I think that for the greater good of Hollywood, we need to push forward this project. We need to keep our eye on the ball, and that's to stimulate this economy. We're creating over 400 jobs here, and it is for the greater good of Hollywood. Let's expedite this, let's move it forward, and hooray for Hollywood.
Thank you, Mr. King. No, Mr. McQuiston, my apologies. That's my error.
No problem. Jim McQuiston, since everybody's saying how long they've been in Hollywood, we've been in the same house for 90 years in Hollywood, so I guess we're the grandfathers of them all.
Spanish, that's abuelito. Well, go ahead.
This is not a question of whether we want Target or not. This is a question of land use. We have to consider what would happen if someone else moved in besides Target. And we have to concern ourselves with another problem, namely CD13. CD13, over our dead bodies, put in this SNAP. And they said they wanted every single one of these obeyed. And we said, this is going to be a nightmare. And what has happened? CD13 evidently now says, let's just do a little bit of negotiation and forget about what the law says. Now, the law may be an ass, but it's what we've got. And this country is built on observance of the law. Now, I've put in another statement to you, and I've analyzed this pretty carefully and showed you why every one of those is a necessary, you might say evil, but it's the law. And it is there to really get a transit-oriented district. And I must say also that 1/2 mile away, or a little bit less, is an even better spot for Target that's been sitting vacant for about 3 years now. And I suppose, and I must say, they have a very high height limit. Target could put their construction down there if they wanted. But if we want to go by the law, and you all have what I was shocked to get, the two Broadway Laguna and Topanga Association Supreme Court things, which are very, very detailed. And when I read those, I thought, holy Toledo, we're doing the wrong way. And they're absolutely applicable to this case. There's no reason why Target can't build something which applies.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. Ziggy Cruz. And then we'll have Aaron Epstein.
Well, good afternoon. I'm Ziggy Cruz. I'm a former member of the Hollywood City District Neighborhood Council. The HSDNC voted against the Target store because it completely ignores most of actually every zoning law that there is in East Hollywood. Then again, I'm not telling you anything that you haven't heard before. The fact of the matter remains, though, if approved, this particular project will send a precedent in East Hollywood and for others to follow suit. What really bothers me, though, is the fact that Target originally came in with this one-story building, one-story, one-floor ground building. Anyway, pedestrian-friendly, all that good stuff. And then council office said, nah, we don't want that. We want this higher, bigger, better. Target, that's another thing that sort of sits wrongly in my thorn here, in my side. Target says we cannot afford to go underground. I know everybody was anticipating this to be repeated, but I guess a lot of people didn't know that Target cleared $65 billion last year, and I just found out that they also increased the dividend of their shareholders by 47%. So excuse me, if I had that kind of dough, I would go underground and I would follow the law. So at this point, I'm really hoping that the committee here will uphold the law that is currently set for that area and not just risk another developer through, even though it's on council agenda tomorrow. You still have an opportunity to speak up and change your opinion on this. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Epson?
Thank you, Councilmember Reyes. My name is Aaron Epstein.
Good afternoon, sir.
I was born in Cincinnati Street in Boyle Heights, not in Beverly Hills, so I want to make that slight correction.
Welcome.
What I'm going to say right now is not going to please the people that are here speaking against the target, and it's not going to please the people that are here speaking for the target. I am a shareholder of Target Corporation. 90% of my material income comes from my shares in Target Corporation, so I'm deeply concerned. A couple of weeks ago at the Target annual shareholder meeting, I talked to the board of directors telling them that we definitely need a Target here in Hollywood. And I definitely believe that. But by the same token, I do believe that being a property owner in Hollywood, that I am concerned about the welfare and the ambience and the general overall history. I'm groping for the right word. The structures that are being put up in Hollywood, and these people here, they are concerned about the welfare of the committee. The people have a legitimate concern about all of this. I therefore ask you to use your wisdom and your persuasive powers to get all those activists that are opposed to the Target as it is planned now, and also insist the Target Corporation meet with the Mr. John D. Griffith, who is head of the real estate for all of Target, and speak with them and see if they can come up with a common solution in which everybody could come together on a win-win situation. Mr. Griffith should not say no, because this Target would be one of the 5 busiest Targets in the entire country. Thank you for listening. God bless.
Thank you very much, sir. Okay, Mr. President, if you'd like to, we also have an RJ Comer as well as part of your team. And we'll finish this public comment. We also have Kyla Bernard and Michelle Silsby. I'm assuming you would want to speak last. Would that be accurate? Okay. So, please, you have the floor.
Councilmember Huizar, thank you for letting me indulge and asking some of our supporters to come up and speak. Appreciate their time. Target's worked on this project for over 3 years. In fact, I was going through the chronology again last night, and one of our first design review meetings was in September of 07. We've worked with a variety of key community leaders. We've worked with the Hollywood Studio Neighborhood Group, Plum. We've worked with the Design Review Committee. We've worked with a variety of community leaders to try and come up with a project that the community can embrace. Target, as you know, is a community member. We don't see ourselves as stores. We see ourselves as community members. We give back 5% of our income back into the communities where we do business. Just real quick, I'm not going to take a lot of time. The project, when we started this 3 years ago, Target's never proposed a suburban-style Target store here. It's not able to fit on this site. It's a 4-acre parcel. A typical suburban-style Target is about 10 to 12 acres. This project is designed to be a sustainable, transit-oriented development with a mix of commercial uses to a blighted urban commercial corridor in Hollywood. We've brought this design to be a vibrant urban design solution with significant community benefits, including an over 10,000 square foot community plaza where people can sit and eat and have coffee and meet, along with a substantial upgrade in the landscape design of the area. And speaking of the high-quality pedestrian design, we've got street frontage on both Sunset Boulevard, which is on the plan south, and Western Avenue to the west of the east of the project, Plan West, is 26,000 square feet of retail, where Target will be the landlord and lease that out to tenants. We're volunteering lead compliance, a substantial amount of streetscape amenities. We've designed our site to accommodate the new Hollywood community plan update with enhanced sidewalks, and I could go on about.
Let me ask you one question, because this was one of the main themes of the presentations that we were hearing that were appealing the project, was the notion of going underground, subterranean parking. Can you speak to that and how we got to that decision-making point?
Sure. Well, first off, there's some misconception that if we were to put parking underground, that actually we would be below the 35 feet. If we put the second level of parking underground, we would still have to come in and ask for exceptions to the project. It would only reduce the project to about 45 to 45 feet in height. There is significant cost to do that. In addition, we would have about 22,000 cubic yards of export soil, which you have a lot of the air quality haul trips to get that out. It would require a noisy ventilation system that to ventilate that underground parking, which we don't have in this design. And so, in addition to, if we lower that, we wouldn't be able to provide a lot of the pedestrian amenities. The big plaza area, if we were to lower it down, we wouldn't be able to have that area for the community, which is something we heard.
Okay. And is there anything else you would like to express to the committee, given what has been presented?
Just a couple quick high points. This is, again, a unique opportunity to redevelop this commercial corner. Target is self-financed. We have approval to build this project, and we could be in construction as early to 60, 90 days with building permits in hand. This would be an economic catalyst, not only for the area, but it solves some of your tax revenue leakage issues. Estimated almost $1 million a year in sales tax revenue generated by the store and the other retail. Right. And again, this is a sustainable development, not only from the green standpoint, but from being a long-term investment in this community.
Okay. In terms of, okay, well, I'll stop there. Any questions, Councilman? No? Okay. Anything else? I think it covers everybody, correct? Because that clears my desk from all the cards that were presented.
Yeah, let me ask you.
Please.
So some of the speakers mentioned that there was really very little work with the community, that they'd like to sit down and work something out. I mean, earlier, the first question from Mr. Reyes was, how many times have there been community meetings? Do you feel you've worked with the community?
Absolutely. We've had, I can remember at least 10 specific community outreach, public hearing type meetings where we met with the Design Review Committee, the Hollywood Studio Neighborhood District, the Plum Committee, which we've met with on Saturday mornings. We've met with numerous community members. We've met one-on-one with the Assistance League. I feel like we've really done a great job of meeting all the...
Was the La Mirada Association involved in these meetings?
Members were involved in the Saturday morning meetings that we presented at.
Okay.
Okay, and so the reason you are not moving forward with an underground parking is because of cost?
It's cost, the potential for the impacts to air quality, the haul trips, the construction impacts of that. It's more than just cost. It's noise. It's and also I think this is a great design, which was the design intent behind the SNAP. There was a 75-foot building envelope in the design intent of SNAP for a commercial, or for a mixed-use development. And in all intents and purposes, this could be considered a commercial mixed-use project.
Okay.
One last question. One presenter indicated we can go through this process or we can go through the courts. The presentation that you've given us and the facts that were presented to this committee, you feel have been are sustainable through the process given all the different issues you've dealt with?
I'll let my attorney answer that.
Okay, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. R.J. Comer on behalf of the applicant Target. You're asking essentially a legal question. I'll give you my legal conclusion.
Please.
And that is, what this case is really about is there's a group of people who disagree with what the city did and want to substitute their judgment, and that is in response to your question as to whether the Environmental Quality Act has been complied with. The answer is, it's true, there is the threshold is whether a fair argument can be made that based on substantial evidence that there might be an impact. Well, in this case, the record shows that there is not substantial evidence to support that fair argument. That doesn't mean there is an argument, but there's no evidence to support it. So my short answer is, I think we're ready to go forward with this project. But let me give you a couple examples. Some of the substantial evidence that's in this record is, well, the level of service at the Western and the 101 is wrong. Well, what we did is we assumed that what they said was true and ran our trips through it, and guess what? Still not significant impact. They said that there'd be neighborhood cut-through traffic that would be significant, and they did a new metric study. We said, okay, we'll take all those trips that you said that were there, and we'll run them through against the city's threshold. Guess what? Not a significant impact. So it's argument, but it ain't substantial evidence.
Okay.
The same thing's true about the specific plan, by the way. The city gets to interpret its own plan. But I would, if I could, I'm ready to respond to the opponent's statements, and I can do it in 2 minutes if you'd like to hear it.
It's been a long day.
I understand.
Your promise is below 2 minutes.
Let me just hit the highlights, if I may.
Okay.
First of all, the Neighborhood Council did not vote against this project. The Neighborhood Council did not vote, did not ultimately take a position on this project. And it's important for you to know that. With regard to undergrounding this parking structure, the short answer is, if we took every single parking lot and parking place and put it underground, it would only lower the project 30 feet. It would still need an exception. It would cause new impacts to air quality, traffic, noise, and it would eliminate the very thing about this design that is consistent with the TOD. As recently as June 24th, the LADOT wrote in a letter, this project would, quote, enhance the pedestrian and transit user environment, the very purpose of the specific plan. Yes, there's specific plan exceptions, but those specific plan exceptions regard a project that is bigger and more developed and more designed than the specific plan envisioned, and the city is allowed to make those findings, and every single finding that needs to be made for those exceptions is in this record, and there's evidence to support it, and I thank you for your time.
Thank you very much. Our last two speakers, we have with us Rochelle Silsby, and then we have Kelly Bernard representing the office of Councilor Garcetti, and so either one wants to speak first, I'm fine.
Rochelle Silsby of the mayor's office had to leave, so she gave me her
okay.
document. So I'll read these into the record.
Okay.
For the record, I'm Kelly Bernard, Director of Planning and Economic Development for Council District 13. Good afternoon. This is on behalf of Rochelle Silsby, who is wanted to be here on behalf of the Mayor's Office of Economic and Business Policy. The Mayor's Office is supportive of the proposed Target mixed-use project located at 5520 West Sunset Boulevard and is opposed to the appeals filed on this project. The Target mixed-use project will be a significant jobs creator. The Target store alone will create 400 full-time employees, and the total project will also create 400 construction jobs, all of which are certainly needed at this period of tremendous unemployment. Many residents in the community are excited to have a new quality retail in the area, which can save them from sending their valuable tax dollars to stores in the neighboring city of West Hollywood. Rochelle would like to commend Target on their outreach efforts, for their substantial investment in the city of Los Angeles, and for their attempts at making this project sustainable, suitable for transit-oriented development, and for their commitment to give back to the community. Thank you. So that was Rochelle.
That was from the mayor's office?
That was from the mayor's office.
For Because he usually pronounces it Target, not Target, so. To make sure it was.
I'll let them know. On behalf of the council district, this project predates my tenure with the council office. It began with my predecessor, Allison Becker, probably back in late 2006, early 2007. So there is no rush to judgment here on this process, on this project. It has been a very long process, and Target, when they first met with our office, they were charged with fitting their kind of suburban prototype into a more urban market or urban area. There's been a lot of talk about the SNAP and its intent and the exceptions that are being asked here. The intent of the SNAP and the Hollywood redevelopment plan is to create a higher density of land uses and a livelier pedestrian environment along major transit corridors, and promote community revitalization of underutilized properties. This project is seated at Sunset and Western, two major transit corridors in our district, and the site is currently blighted and underutilized. In the previous public hearing that you had, you heard from LAPD officers who talked about the nuisance that it has been with the recycling center. You heard from the assistant league, who is their most adjacent neighbor, that talked about the blighted condition and how they both would see the Target development as an improvement to the existing site. Again, we challenged Target to create a more urban design for their store. And that's what you see with some of the wrapping of the parking, the two above ground levels of parking. It's wrapped so that you don't see the parking from the street. We did not want to have a field of parking that you see in other Target stores. There's one at Jefferson and near Jefferson and La Cienega, where you just see a field of parking. We did not want that, and that's currently what's there. And so we asked Hart to go back, work with our design review committee, which is a committee of volunteers who are design professionals, landscape architects, who volunteer their time on behalf of the district, and meet with major developments to talk about how can we better design this project. And so that's what you see here in front of you. Everyone's been talking about height. Yes, there is a provision in the SNAP that says that for commercial development, it must be 35 feet in height, but the SNAP also allows for 75 feet in height. So it's not that we are saying there's an absolute 35 feet in height limitation. For mixed-use projects, you can go up to 75 feet. The intent was talking about creating more housing at the time. Well, Hollywood has developed, and Sunset in particular has developed, where it's not a housing corridor. It is a major transit and regional commercial transit corridor. So we are trying to push through our Hollywood Community Plan update. Sunset Boulevard will be our major kind of office and transit corridor area. Hollywood Boulevard will be focused more on the tourism and old Hollywood, but we're going to see, and we're encouraging height and density on Sunset, where you have the traditional offices and commercial spaces. So we think this is definitely an appropriate site for a development such as Target. And so I will close with just saying that we urge the committee to deny the appeal, to support the Central Los Angeles Area Planning Commission's findings, and approve this project on behalf of the district. Thank you.
Thank you. Before I leave, any questions from Colleen for the council office?
Yeah, well, actually, for the zoning and the planning department.
Can the staff come on up?
Staff.
Linda?
I think, as we've heard today, it's allowable to go up to 75 feet and get that exception. Now the question is, even if it's allowable, how does it fit in with the character of the neighboring building structures? Do you know what's on each side of this parcel, and is it going to stand out? Do you know approximately the heights of the other building structures, the neighboring ones and the ones nearby?
This is Linda Smith, City Planning. Yes, I do know what's existing in the immediate area. We have a Home Depot, which is a classic highway-oriented setup. The parking lot facing Sunset Boulevard. We're talking about commercial construction, so it's in excess of one story of what we think of as one story for residential. There's also Food for Less on the opposite side with the same type of setup. There is mini mall construction across the street. There's a,
So in your opinion, would the height here be out of character with the neighboring properties?
the height would be out of character in that it is immediately adjacent to surface parking structures. However, on the northeast corner of Western and Sunset Boulevard, there is a mixed-use project that is in excess of 65 feet. That project fronts onto Sunset and is, as we say, catty corner to this particular site. The other immediate sites, though, are basically surface parking at the street frontage with the large commercial structure set behind.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Well, first of all, thank you for the hard work, and there are many issues that have been raised, and appreciate the input from both sides. But given the amount of time that's been invested in this project and the number of committee meetings that have been held, I guess what, 2 years now, or 3 years, we would hope that we could come forward with a consensus, but I usually find that when I have meetings like this, if everybody's a little upset, I think I did a pretty good job, because they only got what they wanted. But in this case, I see the position of the council office, and I know that they've been pretty diligent about how they look at this notion of consensus building. I would support the recommendations of the council office in denying this appeal and supporting the recommendation of the staff and moving this forward. Now, is there any technical language or amendments that we have to include in this process before we do our final?
This is Linda Smith, City Planning. Yes, there were 2 administrative corrections that were submitted at the last meeting. I have copies if I need to resubmit those as well, and those were the only changes.
Okay, and those changes have been made familiar with the parties involved?
Yes, they were.
Okay. So with the said recommended changes, I would support denying the appeal, and have a second on that?
Second.
No good action of this committee. All right, anything else, Roberto?
Public comment, Council.
Anybody have a public comment? We have 2 cards. We have Doug Haynes and Ziggy Cruz. And these are on items that are not on this agenda.
Don't worry, I will not harass you about your recent decision. I just wanted to thank, as a member of the East Hollywood Neighborhood Council, this committee and this council, and especially Chair Reyes and Councilman Weezer, for passing, finally, the municipal marijuana ordinance with some teeth in it. We had a so-called pot clinic right in the middle of our neighborhood, adjacent to homes on both sides, and it was nothing but a front for gang members, and that's it. There were kids from school constantly going over there, gang members were buying them pot. It was just a real blight on our neighborhood, so thank you very much, we appreciate it. I don't know what else to say, but it's just really dramatically changed that atmosphere.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for those comments.
Hi again. I just want to keep it close and very short. I'm Ziggy Cruz. I'm a little disappointed in your misbehavior when it comes to the Brown Act. I was complimenting Mr. Weezer last time when we were here as to not to ask people when they come up for the name and address and all that. You shouldn't ask that. You should know that. But anyway, that's per the Brown Act.
Well, let me, for the record, just clear up the city attorney, ma'am. Can you?
Mm-hmm. Adrian Corsani, Deputy City Attorney. There's no requirement that that information be provided, but you're not prohibited from asking.
Okay. Thank you.
I would appreciate that. The other thing is also where I'm a little disappointed in, just at today's hearing, in a couple of occasions, you were asking questions that were borderline personal. questioning public members or members of the public about certain issues and sort of kind of harassing them with that. I would really ask this committee to refer from that as far as that is concerned. Lastly, I wanted to ask Mr. Weezer, at the last time when we were here during public comment, we stayed until the end, Lakers game was on, remember? You guys came back from a closed session, but yet the recording never picked that up. So first of all, the outcome from the closed session meeting that you guys had, nobody knew about it online. Is there a recording available where also the last minutes from the public comment, because there were still a couple of speakers here, including myself, and we had a back and forth, not a back and forth, but just a general public comment. I would like to get a copy of that if that is available.
Sure, you can check with our city clerk and on that, and as I understand, sometimes the legal, the outcome of a closed session, depending on the nature of the item, sometimes does get reported out, sometimes it doesn't. You can get that information from the city clerk on both, whether it was recorded and whether we were required to report out what we the outcome of the closed session. Thank you.
Okay, anybody else, public comment? Seeing none, this meeting is adjourned.